Welcome for the first time to Ask Me Anything. This is a monthly time that we get together and I have the opportunity to address some of the topics and or questions that new members have raised as they've joined our community. So glad. What are we? Who are we? This is the Raising Our Resilience community kind of forum and space. We have a Facebook group. We also have a YouTube channel. And this is where we've had over 1,000 parents request to join our group and just have a chance to have access to some thoughts and ideas and strategies around raising resilient children. And now recently someone asked me, well, why resilience? Why not something else? Why not like well-behaved or well-adjusted or, all these other things? And I said, well, when it comes down to it, we want to prepare our kids to have the kind of character, the kind of fortitude to be able to go out into the world and at the very least, be able to cope with what life throws at them and to have the resilience to weather any kind of adversity and challenge that comes their way. And on the other side of resilience is making meaning out of life, is being able to create really like healthy relationships, being able to strive for your goals, having a healthy lifestyle, making healthy choices, social, emotional, and academic success. There's all these things associated with being able to weather stress and being able to even come out better and stronger after you've experienced something challenging or experienced adversity. And it's not just for folks who are marginalized, it's for all of us, like everybody, including the adults, can be looking at pieces where we are not less resilient, where maybe we lose our cool when we wish we didn't, where the stress of everyday life really gets us down, drags us down. And I have a kind of a side mission here, which is to help parents and kids form such rock solid relationships for life that are based on respect, appreciation, love, understanding, compassion, all of the best of what we can do as people, so that everybody has this like satisfaction of like, you know what, my core family unit is strong, it's solid. I can rely on it when I need it. And I want to give that to my kids is usually what folks are coming to this space for. And when you have that, it's amazing what's possible, not only for your children, but for you. How many of you know that when life is stressful with the kids, your head is down, you're not able to pay attention as much to the other people in your life, to the things that you want to pay attention to at work, perhaps, or in your studies or your career, or maybe even in society at large, right? So you might start to become less and less active in the world. And what a waste, right? Because we have this incredible opportunity to be both amazing parents and caregivers, but also, cultivate great practices out in the world and contribute meaningfully to our communities and our society. So let's free up those energies. Let's get through some of the hardest things. So this segment, Ask Me Anything, is where I have taken, stock of what folks are wanting support with, and we bring them to sort of a question format, and I take a time to answer these questions. So the first question we have here is from Filip F, who is actually a client who's going to be working with us through the spring and then has joined the year-long immersion with his partner. So very excited to have you come and find us and then dive into the work together. It's already been pretty amazing. We've only had one official session. He asks, what tools can we use to set up some good work habits for our 7-year-old daughter? Now, work habits meaning like when, it's time for the 7-year-old to do their homework or to contribute to chores, and just generally, if you can manage your work, like your time, you can focus, you can break it down to steps and do one step at a time, you complete your task. These are all really good work habits that we want all of our children to be able to do, so that when they put their energies and effort towards something, it's effective, right? There's nothing more frustrating or challenging to our resilience than putting time and effort into something and it doesn't really have the effect that we want, right? Maybe you study for a test and you don't do well, or you sit down to do your homework, but you get distracted too much. So without knowing the specifics here, Filip, or without you having shared them, I think that one of the things we can do that we all need to be aware of is that kids need things broken down into smaller steps than we think at first. And that's because we've forgotten what process it took for us to learn how to brush our teeth, clean our, like bathe ourselves from head to toe properly, to make a bed, to keep our room tidy. Like these are things that maybe most of us, hopefully, have internalized, and we didn't realize that there was actually quite a bit of training and like breaking down into smaller steps to get to the place where you just know these things and can do them well. So when I think of good work habits, I think of having internalized the processes and skills that allow us to focus on a task and meaningfully complete it in a timely manner, right? So what you want to do is like take something that perhaps maybe you wouldn't have considered a complicated task and really look at it with fresh eyes, thinking like, if I had never done this before, what are some things that would be helpful for me to know? Or to, you know, like to know, and then also what first steps would I need to take in order to complete this task. So the very simple idea, break it down into smaller tasks with the mindset of, what if I've never done this before? And when you do that for children, you will find that, let's say you break it down into 10 steps, like let's say it's from getting their homework out of their backpack to finish, you know, it being complete and putting it back into their backpack and even turning it in, right? That there are probably 10 steps along the way. And what you want to do is actually talk them through with your child. What's the first thing that needs to happen in order to get started? Oh, I need to find my homework. Okay, then what? Then I need to get my pencil. Okay, then what? I have to make sure it's sharpened. Got it. Do you know where the pencil sharpener is? No, where is it, right? You'll, along that just even the first time, second time, third time, you know, do it several times with them. You'll notice that there are certain stumbling blocks along the way that may be getting in the way of them establishing good work habits or being self-motivated. It's actually something that's kind of a practical thing that is easy to fix. So then the second time you come to it, you're like, oh, you do know how to sharpen a pencil, and you know where to find the sharpener. And so you can move on to the next thing, right? And next thing you know, you're like, oh, they get overwhelmed by the number of problems on the page. Oh, what could we do to make it feel like, you know, break it into smaller steps? And they may come up with the idea like, oh, well, at school, we fold the paper in half, so we only have half the paper to look at. And there you go, you've got something. So there's something about walking them through the steps and breaking them into smaller ones that really can make a huge difference, okay? So Philip, that's a place to start. The second one is, don't ask your kids anything that you're not willing to do yourself, and model to them. If you think that, you know, the best way for them to get their homework done is to not have a screen playing next to them while they're doing it, well, be really cautious to show them that you are always having a screen on when you're doing your tasks. Give them examples, give your children examples of times when you turn screens off and you just focus on one task at a time, and be very vocal about it. I'm going to turn off my device. I'm going to put my phone on silent, put it in my pocket, because I've noticed that if I look at it, if I have it out while I'm cooking, I look at it a lot. And then sometimes I even mess up and put the wrong ingredients in, or let the pot boil over, or the food burn. This is going to really help me concentrate. To put in your cook the meal. Maybe there's music playing or something, right? But you're not doing this. You're not looking and like stopping and getting distracted, as an example. Then you're setting a role model for how they can set up a work environment for themselves that's distraction free. So there's this thing we can do around modeling that makes a really big difference. So I want you to consider that as another strategy. So Philip, I gave you two because I love this topic, and also as a client, I want you to have even more. So we can talk about this even more in your next coaching session coming up next month, or this month of April. All right, so that was the first one, Philip. Nice one. There's another one from Amandla. And I really like this because you are not alone in this, Amandla. I've lived in a household where there's a parent and a child who both, you know, had been diagnosed with ADHD, and it's a whole thing to be able to be the guide and to be managing your own, you know, challenges and or you know, sort of tendencies. So what I would say when you're trying to develop structure with the kids, do it for yourself too, alongside them. So this is the advantage of being an ADHD parent, or a parent with, I should say, a parent with ADHD, experiencing it and living with it, is that your need for structure and organization and things like my client I was just coaching before this said to me, she says, I have to acknowledge my own ADHD, and I need to, for example, use this thing called habit stacking, where I will remember to do a thing if it's already attached to something that happens every day. And so we stacked a habit for her where, like, when her daycare person leaves and says goodbye, then that's when she brings out a special activity for her toddler to help him stay engaged and awake so that he doesn't fall asleep for nap and gets to bed at an early time. That's our new goal, right? So for example, so what I would do is, Amandla, start looking at ways that you can start to hack into like what works well for you. And the advantage that I was mentioning is that oftentimes what ADHD adults need is what most children need. They need structure, they need consistency, they need help remembering, they need help staying organized so that they have systems that they can rely on. So it can be helpful, I'll just be totally honest, to work with a coach or with a mentor who helps you establish those systems. Like I just spent with my client 50 minutes talking about a bedtime system, talking about a special activity system, talking about a homeschooling system in the past, so that you have it in place with somebody who's like, maybe that's one of their strengths, like myself. And then you have it to rely on, and then you can train your kids on the system too. So it can be a kid-friendly system that works for the whole family. So Amandla, I really think, I love this James Clear quote. Maybe some of you might have heard it before. He's the author of Atomic Habits, and I love teaching his work to my high-level students who've been studying with me for at least a year. I have some like 9 families that are in their 2nd and 3rd year of mentorship because of how well the work has been working. They're just like, oh, I can see so much growth here. I want to keep going. I don't want to start over, right? And we start looking at how we can create these kinds of systems that really represent the kind of person we want to be, the kind of parent we want to be, the kind of family and household we want to create. And one of the quotes from that I love is, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And there's this Brene Brown interview with James Clear where she's just like, oh, I love and hate that so much. And then she turns to her assistant, on this recording, you could tell she's like asking her, how many times do I have that written all over the office? And the person's like more than I can count, right? You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And if you're not great at creating systems, get some support creating the systems. And then once those systems are in play in the household, right? You can develop and maintain the structure you're looking for, Amandla. So that's what I want for you, okay? And then in terms of helping siblings bond, I have a whole bunch of teaching that I do, right, on like relationship building, and there are a lot of ways to do it. But one of the first things I would say, since you do have some neurodiversity in your household, is get familiar with love languages and character strengths. What are the like the unique, like maybe top 3 to 5 things that are really stand out about each of the family members, and help them shine in those areas and see each other in those areas. Like maybe one's really creative and humorous, and the other one is more like has more self-regulation, is more prudent, is more cautious, and help them see that those differences are a good thing and how they can combine them for like even better experiences. So let's say the one that's cautious can say to the kid who has all the creativity, why don't you tell me, like, let's come up, yeah, go for it. Let's come up with 10 ideas of how we can do this. And I'll tell you which ones seem the safest to me. Maybe they're trying to like cross a creek or something together, and see how they like my prudence, and my thoughtfulness, you can call it that. My thoughtfulness and your creativity come together like superpowers, and we're like this unstoppable team. So that's something you can do with siblings. Also, if they have different love languages, help them recognize that as soon as possible. It's really huge. I've seen twins like make up after years of fighting when one realized that my love language is gifts and your love language is physical touch. So when you offer me a hug and I say no, it hurts your feelings. When I offer you a gift and you say no, it hurts my feelings. No wonder. Now when I offer to give you a gift, just know that's my big old love language. And then when you offer, I'll know when you offer me a hug, that's your, sign of like affection. And you're not just being annoying, right? So these twins, right? These 7-year-old twins, for example, a client that I worked with, about a year and a half ago, she's just like, this has been, mind-blowingly helpful for my twins, for my sibs. So I imagine one of those two, Amandla, stands out to you more than the other. Would love to know. Put it in the chat if you could. All right, next one. This one says, what can I do when both kids, the 2 and 4-year-olds, are being so unreasonable? I love this one. So unreasonable. Well, let's unpack that first of all. So I like to say that little ones are like little gods. The little ones are like little gods who are trapped in the physical limitations of material reality, because they really children don't know the limitations of what they can create, of what they can access, of what they get to do and experience and be, until they run into those limitations. And they are incredibly unreasonable. And that's because they don't know. They don't understand. And even if you've told them, it doesn't mean they know that it's true. And it doesn't mean that they don't trust you. It just means that life experience hasn't backed up your story enough. And their mind can imagine a different reality where what they want, they get to have. And they don't like that you're saying that reality can't happen. They just don't like it. And that's where we get tantrums, meltdowns, all kinds of power struggles, right? So when we can keep in mind where they're coming from, I like to say this is a human with limited life experience. A limited life experience has definitely saved some moments for me where I would have been like, how dare you say this when I already did do that, when I already said no, and don't you trust me, or like, you need to listen better, right? Honestly, like they just don't have enough life experience with it. So show them why it's true, be consistent, and just keep letting them know it's like, yeah, I really wish it was different, but like, no, there isn't unlimited ice cream. Like you just get the scoop. I know there's more in the fridge, but this is what your body can handle. And I know that this is true. So I'm going to make this call for all of us right now. We just get 1 scoop each, oh yeah, but dad gets 2 because his body's bigger, and they're like, that's not fair. I know, right? It just seems like weird. But if you think about it, look how big his body is. His stomach must be pretty big too. He's got to have double ice cream for that big stomach. Anyway, so like you can do that with the 2 and the 4-year-old and just help them basically cope with the fact that reality places limitations on what they can create in their mind. And when we can kind of own that role of like, I am the like an alien species has landed to the planet. You got to remember, kids have no memory usually of any kind of previous experience being in the body of being human. That you're like this tour guide of like, right. So it turns out, like we really can't just eat all of this, because if we do, then there's nothing left and nothing grows back the next year. So please only take half of the fruit off of this, or half of the leaves off of this plant or something. And you have to like give a tour guide to like how things work. Like, yeah, you can't just go to the bathroom anywhere, because we learned that germs spread. And so we have these places called bathrooms that we put our waste in. Like, think that's like potty training. That's like, portioning. That's things that we just do. We're like, oh yeah, we don't want to drink all the milk in a day because then we don't have milk tomorrow, right? So we kind of ration it for ourselves. It's the same kind of thing we need to do with our little toddlers and 4-year-olds. So just shifting your mindset about like what your role is can be a big help. Now, there's also the side that they're responsible for, which is learning how to cope with disappointment, learning how to tolerate the no, respecting limits and expectations, finding ways to be motivated where they don't, their favorite word is shifts from no to okay. There's all these pieces that eventually toddlers and 4-year-olds will learn. And I would need to talk to you more, Pricilla, about what exactly you've been trying to know, like, what are they being what are they being unreasonable about? But let's just pick one thing. I want to, toddlers can get really stuck on like, I want to put the buckle on myself, like let's say in a seatbelt, and they're trying and they're trying and they're trying. And they're like, no, you can't help me. But they're like not quite able to do it. And now they're going to be it's going to feel like they're being really unreasonable by getting really mad at you when you say, I have to help you, sweetie, we got to get going. It's probably a relatable scenario. Yeah. If it's relatable to you, just put the word yes in the chat. And if you're here, just say hi on Facebook or the YouTube replay. So we know who's watching and we get a chance to like connect with you and hear your thoughts. So just put the word yes and replay if you're watching the replay. So if you're being unreasonable, like I would make a note to myself of like, this requires some reorientation. We used to call them reintroduction in the preschool classroom. I need to reintroduce this work of the seatbelt to the child, and I need to take some time. The other one is you take some time out for training because this child is very, very interested and invested in doing this themselves, and I want to support that. So then I might do something, go so far as spending some time in the car when you get home, practicing the seatbelt when there is time, and being able to say, honey, we don't have time now. I know you might get upset, but I'm just going to do this. I'm going to buckle it. And later I will show you how to do it yourself. We'll work on it, I promise. And they could still scream and shout, but you know you've done the right thing. Yeah. So unreasonable turns into limited life experience and compassion for that, slowing down and taking time for training for the things that they need, reintroducing things so they have a new relationship with it, especially if they've been unreasonable about it for weeks or months. And you know, kind of embracing the role that we have of cultural ambassadors to our kids about what the limitations and the opportunities that are available to them. Okay, so please let me know if that's helpful in the chat or you know, in the comments here. It looks like Priscilla's here. Yeah, no problem, Priscilla. That's okay. She says yes, she totally relates to this. Okay, so I did a nice long segment for you, Priscilla. If you wanted to come back and leave another comment and just tag me in it, I'd be so happy to, you know, jam with you a bit more. There's also an opportunity for y'all to come to a training that's a free training on April 17th that we'll be sharing about in just a moment here as another way to connect, because, you know, we can keep chatting here. It doesn't have to be the only conversation we have. Just want to make sure I have the right Mary here. So I have another topic or question from Mary Oakes. She has a 5, 8, and 10-year-old, and she's saying the hardest thing to do is to let go of control. Yes, it is. Especially if and when your children are in a situation that you know that they could easily make mistakes that have, you know, a short to long-term impact on themselves and others. And so like letting go of control can be one of the scariest things to do because of the risk that is like comes along with it, right? And when you let go, I think the most important thing to do is use that letting go constructively. Like they say that even with like couples that take a break when they're fighting, it's like, fine, yeah. And this is something like our coach Imani, who's a marriage coach, will say to our immersion members, like folks who are in our year-long programs. She'll say, yeah, if you are the kind of person who needs to take a break, and we kind of identify our communication styles, just make sure that you use that break constructively. Like if you're going to go you're going to leave a situation and you're going to like rev yourself up so that you're ready to come in even hotter into the argument, like that's not necessarily the best use of the break. Maybe talking it over with somebody who can help you put your thoughts together, journaling, taking a break from it entirely, and then looking at it with fresh eyes once you calm down. Like these are productive, constructive ways to take a break, right? So thinking about letting go of control, which is the hardest thing, Mary says, use that time when you let go constructively. What I would say is, first of all, don't wait until you're exasperated to let go. Like, fine, you all have not been listening. You've been behaving badly. Now you broke the thing. I'm just like you're on your own. And then you stomp away, right? Like that probably is a sign. There's a couple signs in there you probably heard that you might have waited a little bit too long to just sort of like step back and let it go. What you could do instead, kind of on the front end of that, where you start to feel like things are getting out of control or out of your control at least, is step back and observe and just see if you can describe what's happening. I used to do this. I mean, I had a classroom of 12, 24, 36, or 48 children, somewhere in that range, for 15 years, from ages 2.5 to 9.5. And so did it ever get out of control? I mean, yeah, you bet it did. And, but the most important thing I could do is not overreact, stay calm, which are two very productive things to do with stepping back, right? Like do something to calm down, check any reaction, check any reactions. Like, do I really want to yell right now? No. Is this something that is so important? I need to like stop everything for it. Maybe, I don't know yet. So why don't I wait and see? Have a little moment with yourself, check in with yourself, and then really take in the scene. Because oftentimes we're a little too close to it to see like whether like what kind of control you really have been trying to get and whether or not it's even necessary. I cannot tell you the number of times I stepped back and observed, and a child or the children did work it out to some degree on their own, where I had assumed they would need my intervention. I'll give you an example. Kids outside having a conflict, right, around the snack table. And as soon as I heard voices go up, I thought, uh-oh, I better get out there and break up this fight. But I made myself stop at the door and just listen. And if I hadn't, it would have looked like there was one kid who was losing it and was making it a hard time for everybody else. But what was really going on, because I waited and I listened, was that she was trying to say, look, guys, and basically bringing up the rule or the expectation, like, I'm going to clean up my spot, but I don't really feel like it's fair that you all aren't cleaning up your spots. I think we're all going to get some, the teacher's going to talk to all of us about that. I'd really appreciate it if everybody did their part. And they were like kind of going, oh, you want us to do your part, huh? Like kind of giving her a hard time about this. And she was actually trying to do right by herself and by the rules, and trying to encourage them to, like, just be better citizens basically of the classroom. If I hadn't caught that first, what happened next would have looked like her just like flying off the handle out of nowhere. She started to yell at them a little bit. She's like, you guys are so mean, like you're so unfair. And like, she's like, ugh, and then she starts stomping around. I was so glad I paused and waited and listened to see what was going on, because I was able to come into the conversation with so much more information and compassion for her, understanding of why her frustration boiled over. And sure, maybe if I'd intervened earlier, she wouldn't have had this experience of getting really upset twice, right? Because it already happened once. I saw it from out inside. But I also thought it was a good plan for me to keep my cool and to get the information, since nobody was going to be physically harmed. And I was able to come in and very intelligently respond and meet her needs, talk to the group and the community, like, what do you think she was trying to do? Why was, before she started yelling, what was going on? Why would she say that to you? Like, what do you think her concerns were? And then we're actually able to bring it to like a class meeting level and reestablish the rules. So she didn't have to. She was taking on this job that was like, more than she needed to take on. And I was able to reassure her that it's okay. I'm going to take it from here. And she kind of relaxed a bit, right? So much more can happen. So what I would say is, like, how do I let go of control, like step back and take it in and choose just one next thing to do. And maybe like really weigh out whether or not you do need to get involved. Like maybe things do need to play out sometimes. Maybe the kids need to learn that, if they make a giant mess today, then that means tomorrow, before they can even have any playtime, they have to spend an hour cleaning up, and they get to learn from that. Like maybe you let go of the house being tidy today and getting the kids to clean up before bedtime, for example, right? Especially with 3 kids, I can just imagine there's like, quite a bit of activity and possible mess going on. The other thing that you wrote was that you also watch other children during the day. So your tank can be really empty and you don't always give your kids the best. Well, sweetie, like I have been hired on and flown around the country to give talks, and also invited to be an educational consultant and look at classrooms and work, in situations. So I wonder if this is something that we could have a longer conversation about like, what does the day look like? And I think that there might be something there that to tweak in like the routine, in the activities being offered, in the amount of staff that you have, or in the structure of the day, that could build in better breaks for you. I think there's also a way to get your 3 kids moving and shaking, on their more independently. At 5, 8, and 10, there's a lot of opportunity for you to not need to have a lot left in your tank, and you can have some recovery time before you're then like really on with the kids for, let's say, getting ready for bed and bedtime. So let's talk about that. Let's get your schedule tightened up. I'll share a way that you can do that in a moment. Because Mary, you don't have to keep going like this. Like I've seen teacher and caregiver burnout, and it's really real. That's part of why I get hired on by schools to do teacher burnout prevention programs, where we meet 3 times a year, and they have all this like self-care, like kind of environment that we create. But it's also about like how to prioritize. There's just a lot of pieces here, and I want you to have access to some of that. So let's talk soon. Last but not least, I love this question. Actually, there are 2 more. Sorry. I like both of them. How can I get them to stop constantly fighting each other. Sounds like siblings, Bre. Yeah, siblings. Just like the 5, 8, and 10-year-old making a big old mess, right? But you have a 1, 3, 7, 10, and 14-year-old, 5 kids. And I see you, honey. I have a very large family on my father's side. My grandmother had 18 children.
Get them to stop constantly fighting each other.
1 second. From 21 pregnancies. So I'm very familiar with the big family. And so Bre, with your 5 kids, you've got to give them time and space away from each other. That's my first hot tip. So separating like time, letting your teenager run off and do, kind of roll off and do their own thing. Having the middle childhood kids have a different kind of activity than your little ones. And you're probably going to, if you have any little ones really getting up in the business of your middle childhood, middle and older kids, you're going to need to occupy them pretty consistently, whether they're like on your hip, they're your helper. You put them into activities that are really absorbing, like Play-Doh and water play and sand tray and paint and stuff like that. Because they have the little ones have a really hard time managing themselves. So your 1 and 3-year-olds are going to be your like low-hanging fruit to get them anchored. So just that alone, we could go walk through like how that routine could look. For example, when you get them all home from school, when you're like wrangling the morning routine, you can absolutely get your older kids to role model and help with the younger kids, but it takes some time to get their buy-in. So there's another thing that you could be looking at. And then Bre, I would say every family that has 2 or more kids needs conflict resolution skills in place that everybody knows. Like they know problem solving suggestions, they know I statements, they know apologies, like they have, and like we have this process I call the revisit reset. They have those pieces in place to rely on. Just like I mentioned, those kids at the snack table, like they eventually had this class meeting when we went through a process around like, retraining and getting the community back on board with how we were going to handle the snack space. Every little society of family that has 2 children or more, especially, needs that. And that's why I teach it for 2 months out of the year of my year-long program, because it's such a vital part. It's one of the pillars of resilience. So I'm glad you brought this up, because it is something that can sometimes get overlooked. We're just like, we just want them to behave better. But actually, like identifying it as fighting helps, because then you can say, okay, so then we need conflict resolution skills. We need ways that they can solve problems without getting into big fights. Just like the kid who started to yell at the snack table, I reminded her that if something like this happens, she can bring it to a teacher's attention. We can put it on the agenda for the class meeting, and we have a process we can go through to improve it. She doesn't necessarily need to be like the warrior of like, fairness alone. She can still be a messenger of it, but she doesn't have to carry it alone. And that really helps kids. And then, they're so effective that, I would have my 8 and 9-year-olds in my classroom walk up to the problem solving suggestions on their own, pick something and come back and say, hey, I think this is one of those where we need to come up with a win-win solution. What do you think? And then they'll sit down and they'll brainstorm a win-win solution together, and may not involve me at all. So I think having those pieces in place would just take a lot of pressure off of you, Bre, and also other folks who have multiples. So let's keep that in mind going forward, and we can talk more about that. Priscilla says, my son is 4 years old, and one of the ways he's unreasonable is by refusing to use his words and won't stop screaming for long periods of time. Any suggestions? I have so many, Priscilla. As a matter of fact, it's a perfect opportunity to share this resource that's coming up. So I have a Navigating Big Emotions with Calm and Confidence live workshop. That's a live virtual workshop. Priscilla, I really want you there. It's free, so there's no reason not to sign up. I just dropped the link in the chat for everybody. If you click on that, it'll show you this. I'll just show you real quick. Oh, there it is. Okay. Looks like this. So it's a free event for parents and caregivers called Navigating Big Emotions with Calm and Confidence. It's myself and my co-presenter, Dr. Luz Casquejo Johnston. It's on Monday, April 17th, 6 p.m. Pacific. Yes, there will be a recording, but please come live because you'll get more out of it. But if last minute you can't make it, just know that you will have a backup plan. And we want you to learn steps and strategies to navigate when kids stop using their words and start screaming instead. What's going on, just briefly, is their lid has come off and you've got to put the lid back on. You can't use a lot of words to try and get them to use their words, especially if their lid is half off or all the way off. Basically, the intensity level has reached, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, 5 to 10, which screaming definitely falls in, Pricilla. It can be fruitless for both of your 2 and 4-year-old to try and get them to use their words. Kind of like this dad in the picture is probably wishing his daughter would just talk to him, right? So we have tools and tips and tricks of how to handle it when that's happening, so that they can get back to a place of calm enough to be able to use their words again. And then you can start to teach them the words that they can use next time and next time and next time. And eventually they don't necessarily scream. They might, because they can find the words quickly enough to head off that big tantrum or meltdown. But 2 and 4 is a really normal age for them to have a hard time finding their words. My other tip for you, Pricilla, is you can say, are you trying to tell me, and then guess the words, the exact words that you think that they're trying to convey. They're trying to communicate with this upset, right? Like, are you trying to tell me that you'd like me to pick you up? Are you trying to tell me that you want a turn too? Are you trying to tell me that you don't like that? And see if they can at least give you a nod, then you're heading in the right direction. So that's one thing you can do in the moment. But there's a lot of other things. So what we'll do in this workshop is we'll talk about how to recover after overreacting, how to talk so your kids will listen and move through these emotions, and also for how you can listen for the needs behind the behavior, so that when you're doing that guesswork of, are you trying to tell me this, you're trying to show me this, you get better and better at it. And with these 3 tools, you'll inspire better listening and win more cooperation, so you can get on the same page with your kids. And these big emotions, you'll be able to move through them in a way that's meaningful and constructive, rather than painful and destructive. So go ahead and, yeah, please click on that link and sign up. Those of you who are here and are watching the replay, it's in the chat, it's in the comments. Okay, you'll be able to sign up for that free webinar. Okay, last question. This is when I was like, oh, I really like this. Oh, that was it. Was that it? One more. Let me look one more time. I think I got through them all. Yes. Okay. Great. So what tools can you use? How can you get the kids to stop constantly fighting? What do you do when these big emotions come up? A lot of what we're going to cover in that webinar will help you with these things. And also, this right now is a time where I happen to have some spots open on my calendar. I don't share this every week because it's not always open, but I do have time on my calendar right now to meet with folks for a complimentary 30-minute coaching session. And if you have not taken me up on this in the last calendar year, then you can also sign up for a complimentary session. Okay. Oops, I think it went a couple times, but yeah, the link went through. And this is where our opportunity to sit down for 30 minutes on Zoom. I just did this with about 6 families from a workshop last week out here in Livermore, where we sat down and we just talked through, the strengths and challenges that are, things that are going on, areas of growth for you as a parent. And we really want to pick one thing like this, like the Ask Me Anything, where we can go deeper on it, and you will have a chance to actually talk about what's going on with you and get you some coaching, and also see if it's a good fit to have you hop into one of our programs or work together as in a private coaching relationship. There's no obligation. So it's a resource I like to offer to folks who actually take the time to show up for events like the Ask Me Anything, like the Monday Mindset, like the school workshops, and like the virtual workshop coming up in April. So feel free to pop on my calendar, and would love to chat with any one of you, especially those of you who are brave enough to share what the hardest thing is right now, including Amandla, Pricilla, especially, I'm so glad you're here today. Bre, Mary, and also, I think I caught everybody. Yeah, Bre and Mary as well. All right, y'all, really good to have you here today or on the replay. Again, right replay if you come and join at another time, because we always love to know who hangs out with us for these kinds of things. And yeah, wishing you all the very best. Let us know how things are going. Always feel free to drop a post into the group to let us know if anything stood out to you or worked especially well. Oh, one last announcement. Yeah, I almost forgot. We have this really fun event coming up where I'm collaborating with Teresa Phillips, who's been in our community now for years and has attended many of our events. And she and I had a chat about moms and parents and caregivers like not being the best at building in self-care. And so one thing we ended up talking about is like, well, how do we do a better job of this, right? Like, how can we actually, build in more self-care? And there's a lot of ways to do that. It's something I teach to teachers all the time too. But what we have for you is something called a skincare self-care party. She happens to be a Mary Kay independent beauty consultant and a mother of, multiple kids. And she said, her skincare routine is like what kind of helps her calm down and find her sanity at the end of the day. And I said, well, that's so smart, and she's like, well, I actually have the opportunity to send samples to people and throw a little party, a little skincare party. And I said, well, why don't you do it for us, for our community? So I think she has like 3 sets left of the samples of like charcoal masks and hydrogel eye patches. And like, we're going to get together basically on April 11th. It's a Tuesday night, at 6 p.m. Pacific. And we're just going to hang out for about half an hour and try out these skincare products and just get to hang out and be parents and caregivers doing our self-care and just kind of giving ourselves a little pampering. So if you'd like to come to that, we'd love to have you. And I'll be dropping a link of a form you need to fill out. Now, the only catch is you have to fill it out today because this is the last day that she'll have time to ship it with you, or ship it to you rather. So just make sure that you go ahead and fill out this form today. And so she can get that care package to you in a timely manner. And here's a little infographic about it so you can kind of see what the vibe is. So yeah, so you ready for your spring glow? Tuesday, April 11th, 6 p.m. And you can join via Zoom, and there's the passcode, and she'll email it to you as well when you fill out the form. But more importantly, fill out the form so that you can get your samples mailed to you on time. You want to fill it out today. If you fill it out any later, she can try and get them to you on time. So feel free to still fill out the form. And so you can get the information about the party. You can still come to the party, but you just may not get your samples quite on time for the party. They might come much later. Okay. All right, y'all. Good work today. Lots of love to you. And we'll be back next week for another Monday Mindset Moment. A really short, punchy little segment with a tip for you. And we're so glad we're able to help you today. Be well, everybody. Take care. Bye for now.